Hello, I'm back with a new video, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for the support so far. The first two videos I've done, I've got well over 200 views on both videos, which I'm very surprised about considering the sudden change in content on this channel. But before we get into the video, I'm just going to sneak in a little plug for my band Kistvayen. We released our first album last year in April, and we've got a couple of shows coming up. We've got one in Manchester at Rebellion. It's an all-day event put on by Reaper Agency, and it's headlined by Bar Shasketh. And we've got bands like Nemoris, Abyssal, Calligram, Atclash, Blood Countess, Master's Call, and many, many more. I'm really, really excited to play Manchester for the first time, so I hope to see you there. And we've also got a gig coming up with Seor, or Sur, this bloody band name, man, and Offness in the Exchange. So I'm really looking forward to that one. It's going to be fantastic. That is on the 13th of February. We've got brand new hoodies that are on their way. They're going to be available exclusively to those that turn up to these two gigs. And then after that, any remaining hoodies will be put up on our Bandcamp. So come on down to either of those two gigs if you can to pick up a hoodie. Right, so this video is going to be exploring what a growth mindset is, because it's essentially what you need in order to be able to achieve anything. What is a fixed mindset? So a fixed mindset is the belief that your abilities and your intelligence are innate and unchangeable. For example, you could say to yourself, I am terrible at the guitar, or I can't sing for shit. Or maybe you'll be at a concert and you'll be looking up on the stage thinking that the musician looks badass, they're shredding on the guitar, and you think to yourself, there's no way I can do that, so why bother even trying? And you might think to yourself that they must just naturally be talented, very gifted. To continue with this example, if you do pick up a guitar and try to play something, you might fail to be able to actually play it. And then you'll believe that the failure is the limit of your abilities. And in this failure, it doesn't feel good. So you give up because you feel frustrated. The frustration feels bad. And so you want to avoid this bad feeling in the future. And so you avoid challenges in the future. Let's say somebody gives you some feedback on what you could have done better. If you have a fixed mindset, you will take the criticism personally. You might perceive the criticism to be an attack on your identity. There's a brilliant example of this in The Mighty Boosh, which I'm a huge fan of. And the first season, there's an episode where Vince tries to give Howard some feedback on his one sentence that he's spent loads of time writing. He's supposed to be writing, I think, like a play or something. But Vince is a bit scared, is a bit, apprehensive to give the feedback in the first place, because he's like, oh, well, you know what you're like, I don't want to, you can't take criticism. And Howard's like, no, go on, give it a read. So he gives it a read and he goes, yeah, it's pretty good actually, yeah, it's a pretty good sentence, yeah. And Howard's like, oh yeah, oh, is it? You think so? Yeah. And then as soon as Vince goes, the only thing I would say is, Howard just stands up and throws stuff around and thrashes about because he can't take the criticism. Ultimately, thinking this way, it led me to believe that I was inherently unproficient in almost all things. So that kind of sums up a fixed mindset. So what is a growth mindset? Well, according to Carol Dweck, who coined the term, she defines it as a belief that a person's capacities and talents can improve over time. So to take the example from earlier, instead of saying, I'm rubbish at guitar, you could say, I think I could be better at guitar if I applied myself and dedicated a little more time to practicing. And when you're at that gig and you look up at the stage and you see that musician looking awesome, you would feel inspired by them. You might think, wow, this person clearly dedicates a lot of their time to practicing guitar, much more time than I do. So feeling inspired, you might go and pick up a guitar. You'll have a go at practicing the riff that you're learning, and you will fail inevitably. But with a growth mindset, instead of saying, oh, that's it, I can't play this riff, a growth mindset would say, it's okay, I've practiced this riff a few times now. Maybe I'll put the instrument away. Maybe I'll play a different riff and I'll come back to this later. And tomorrow, the muscle memory will have developed in my hands and I will continue to practice a bit more. Another way I've applied growth mindset is actually how I've become less elitist over time. So instead of me saying, oh, I don't like thrash metal, I now say, most of the time, I don't seem to enjoy thrash metal, but I won't let the genre's label put me off checking out something for myself. And this way I've discovered a few thrash bands that I actually do enjoy, like Evil, Creator, and I'm sure there's a few others if I thought about it a bit more. But if I had a fixed mindset, if someone told me to listen to Creator, and I said, oh, okay, cool, what kind of genre are they? And they said thrash metal. If I had a fixed mindset, I'd say, oh, I don't like thrash metal. So, I mean, that kind of sounds like an open mind, keeping an open mind. But I feel like there's a bit of an overlap here with keeping an open mind about what your abilities are, what your capabilities are, what you are able to achieve. If you adopt a growth mindset, you understand that intelligence is like a muscle that becomes stronger as you continue to work it. So essentially, practice makes perfect. Whatever it is that you choose to practice, you will become better at it. Or to use another analogy, wherever you water the grass, that grass is going to grow. So wherever you focus your efforts, you're going to find success there. Of course, you will encounter obstacles along the way, but with a growth mindset, you will see an obstacle and you will see that an obstacle is basically an opportunity to grow and learn. Once you get into thinking with a growth mindset, you will start to understand that it's the effort and the attitude that determines the ability. And therefore, it's really important to praise someone's effort more than the actual result itself. Or you could say, focus on the journey, not the destination. So a growth mindset is more than just like an idea or a concept. It is actually backed up by science. There is a term called neuroplasticity, which is basically the ability of the brain to rewire and reorganize the neural connections in response to learning. So you can literally change the structure of your brain by repeatedly building habits, and then those neural connections become more ingrained. I believe this translates into the thoughts that you hear when you listen to your mind. A really big one for me was alcohol. I used to drink a lot of alcohol, and I used to drink alcohol at gigs and festivals specifically, and I would always tell myself that if I go to a gig, I have to have a beer. You have to have a beer. You're not going to have fun if you don't have a beer. And now I've been sober from alcohol for 3.5 years-ish. I now have a new voice in my head that says, you can have fun at a gig without alcohol. That's brilliant. That's great. In fact, I did it just last night. I went to see the Halo Effect and Pain and Blood Red Hourglass at the Electric Ballroom, and God, all three of those bands, super uplifting, really positive. It kind of made me realize I'm maybe listening to too much depressive atmospheric black metal, and sometimes I need to make an effort to inject some more positive metal into my life. But anyway, I went. I had no drink, and I had an amazing time. And the more I have done that over the last 3.5 years, the more that those neural pathways have been reinforced in my head. And so now I have nice thoughts about going to gigs without drinking instead of terrifying ones like, oh no, what if I can't have a drink? If I can't have a drink, I'm not going to have fun. Oh, it's going to be awkward when I talk to that person. Oh. And before I get into my own personal experience with growth mindset and when I heard of the term and everything, it's just this point I wanted to make that I didn't know where else to kind of squeeze it into the video, so I'm just going to pop it here. And it's the idea that there are things in life that you can control, and there are things in life that you cannot control. It sounds very simple, and I remember when my uncle told me this soon after my divorce, it really, really helped me to just be able to focus on some of the things, and all the other stuff that was not in my control whatsoever, I let go of that. I mean, it's not in my control. What can I do? There's no point to me thinking and stressing and worrying about those things. So things that are not in your control are, I don't know, just some examples. Things like the passage of time. Time will move forwards. You cannot control that. Natural events like the weather or any natural disaster. And more morbidly, the inevitability of death. You can't control that. We're all going to die. So don't worry about it. I know this might sound a bit jarring. I've had a lot of time to become comfortable with these things. I cannot control these things. So I don't... I mean, sometimes I fall into the trap of thinking about these things. But if I catch myself, I bring myself out of thinking about these things because I know that they're out of my control. And I try not to think about them. And instead, focus on the things you can control. So things that you can control, you can control what you put into your own body. You can control the amount of exercise you do. You can control the time spent practicing something. I might do a full video about this in the future just to really hammer it home. I really, really, really liked this sentiment. I don't know, this idea that there's things you can and can't control in life. So I hope that it helps you. So I came across the term growth mindset once again thanks to my wonderful fiance Alba. When I met her, she must have introduced me to this idea in like 2020, soon after we'd met. She recognized quite quickly the way in which I would talk about myself and my abilities, and she watched an interview that Heavy Metal Entertainment did with me and a couple of my bandmates at Warhorse 2019, and she came back to me and she said, "Lee, I'm really annoyed with you. That whole interview, you are putting yourself down. You're talking negatively about your band, yourself, your abilities. Why are you doing that?" And I never even realized. She basically shone a light on how I was really talking down to myself and talking negatively about myself quite constantly. And I didn't realize. It was a big slap in the face. And so she told me that that's me thinking with a fixed mindset and that I should adopt a growth mindset. And she explained everything to me. Over the last 4 or 5 years, I have adopted this growth mindset, and that's led to my band releasing our debut album. It's led to me starting this YouTube channel and various other things I set my mind to over the last few years. I was genuinely astonished how my limited ways of thinking had such a control over what I was doing, my actions. I created these self-inflicted barriers and I didn't even know that they were there. So once this veil was lifted, I found success changing my diet. I continued to push my weight loss beyond all expectation. I improved on how I show up in our relationship and developed a more open mind in general. And this bit reminds me of this really cool little video I saw. In the video, you have a piece of paper and there's an ant that is walking around on the piece of paper, and somebody draws a line in a marker pen on the paper. There must be some kind of chemical in the ink that the ant can detect. So when the ant walks to the line, it detects that there's, it's a different substance and it doesn't walk on the pen. And so it changes direction and the ant moves in another direction and they draw another line, and they, the same thing happens, and everywhere the ant goes, they draw a line, and every time it reaches a line, it turns around. So it's perceiving this marker pen to be a barrier that it can't cross. And then in one instance, I don't know, the marker pen was being drawn quite quickly. The ant maybe couldn't process it fast enough, and the ant ended up crossing over the line. And then after that point, it realized that it wasn't a barrier. And so all the other lines that are on the page, the ant just walks straight over all of them. So once you break free of that one initial barrier, you'll realize that it was never really a barrier in the first place. Now that you know what a growth mindset is, I'd love to hear in the comments below if you can identify an area in your life that you think maybe you are thinking with a fixed mindset, and an area in your life that you are thinking with a growth mindset. But before I sign off, I just wanted to recommend a metal song that has a positive message. The song is Strength of the Mind by Killswitch Engage, and if you have a read through the lyrics, I believe he's trying to portray that, you know, anything is possible because the mind is strong. You have a mind in your skull the same as I have. So if Jesse Leach is able to overcome some of his demons, I think he struggled with depression and mental health issues, and I've managed to achieve some stuff, then you also have this amazing thing between your ears, inside your skull, this brain. It's an amazing thing that can be molded. So have a listen to that song, have a look through the lyrics, and hopefully you can feel inspired. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing your comments down below to see if this video helped at all or inspired you in any way, and I look forward to the next one. See you then.